What's up, fellas and fellerettes? I'm Graham, and I make videos about college as well as document my journey as I head into my senior year. One thing that nobody gets in college is sleep. Yet we all know it's somewhat important, but before going to college, I was sure I was going to be that guy who was different, and I was going to get sleep, but it's hard. And whenever I know I need sleep the most, I really struggle to actually fall asleep. If you aren't convinced sleep is important, there's this old video of me losing my mind about how important it is to sleep. And I've regrettably attached it up there. It's more for comedy than information. But even with it being so important, how do you actually get more sleep, especially in college? Well, that's what this video is going to try to do. So, here we go. I'll start with some mindsets that are helpful to properly approaching the thought of sleeping in college. I'll start by saying that most of these are common sense. You've probably heard them before, and not one of them is going to be the single thing that helps you sleep more in college. It's just going to be a lot of these things tied together that help you out, or you'll be able to notice the one that maybe you aren't doing that helps you out. The first mindset I think is helpful is to dispel that sleeping in is bad. Sleeping in is getting sleep. It's totally okay to sleep in, especially at college, as long as it's reasonable. A 20-year-old person's circadian rhythm is at the point that it's never going to be at again. As a child, you wake up early, naturally, because that's how God designed our bodies. And then again, as an elderly adult, you go to bed super early and wake up super early, because once again, that's how God designed our bodies. But when you're from that 18 to 26-year-old period as a college student, your mind is at the point where it stays up later and wakes up later, and that's totally okay. It's just part of the natural human circadian rhythm cycle. If you're able to go to bed early, that's great, but it's totally okay to stay up later so you can fall asleep naturally. Just make sure you're sleeping in and not forcing yourself to get up ultra early without getting enough sleep. So with that mindset of it's okay to sleep in, let's take a look at the time frame that's proven to best go to bed at. This one ultimately does depend on you, but here's a good time frame to aim for because the average of most people is the average. You probably shouldn't go to bed before 9:30 or 10, even though there's not much worry about that actually happening because most people in college just never do that. But what's the absolute limit of how late you can stay up on an average basis, normal basis? Well, it looks to be about 1:30 or 2 being the absolute limit of how late you should stay up on a regular basis. This is going to be different for every person, but it's okay to go to bed later than that if it's natural for you. Just don't be surprised if what's natural for you changes as you become more consistent with your sleep schedule. Consistency is, I think, one of the hardest yet still most important parts about sleeping well in college. I always hear the advice of go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. But in college, for me, and I know for a lot of other people, it's just not possible. It changes all the time. There's maybe 2 to 3 days a week where I can have a somewhat consistent sleep schedule, but there's always some event to stay up late for on just some random night, and then because you stay up late, then it's harder to go to bed early the next night, and then you have to wake up early for that one class that's after this time, and then you have that super early morning breakfast with this person, and my basic advice is just get as much sleep as physically possible. But then that leads to the problem of trying to go to bed early in order to get up early for a class and still get enough sleep, but not being able to go to sleep because it's so early compared to when you were going to sleep. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's talk about how much sleep you probably need. There's a 0.001% chance you are one of those people on planet Earth who only needs 4 hours of sleep. You're not one of those people, okay? There's a much bigger chance that you're a person who needs 8 hours of sleep like a normal person. Most likely, you think you can survive with much less than that, but you honestly, as a college student, need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep in order for your body to continue functioning properly. But of course, that's not possible, you're screaming, and I totally get it. I think the bare minimum is 7 hours and 15 minutes, where I notice that there's no difference between that and getting more sleep. Under 7 hours, 15 minutes for me, and I can notice just small differences in how my brain acts and how sleepy I feel and just how tired I get. So how do I account for the days that I can't get 7 hours and 15 minutes? Because that happens a lot. Well, if I don't have a class in the morning, I let myself sleep in. I just let my body wake myself up. Of course, I set like an absolute deadline. If I can't do that, I work to use that sleep deficit I have to go to bed early, because it's easier to go to bed earlier when you've had to get up early and didn't get enough sleep the night before. Other than that, I take a nap. And let's define nap here. A nap is not some giant 2 to 3 hour thing you do on the weekends to catch up. That's gonna wreck your sleep even more. A nap should be anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes or so. Once again, this is going to be different for you, so find an exact time that works and don't be surprised if it changes when you get more consistent with sleeping a lot. But even just having a moment in your day to rest your brain and just close your eyes for like 8 to 9 minutes is very helpful to recharge. I found the longest I could nap is about 45 minutes before it starts messing up my sleeping schedule, but it may be different for you. And just remember that you should probably nap before 2 o'clock in the day, right after lunch or so you don't mess up your sleep pattern and make it harder for yourself to go to sleep. And that of course can be hard if you're literally waking up at 1 o'clock in the day, but you should probably fix that habit and not sleep in later than 10:30 or 11. I think that's a pretty good range, maybe till noon at the latest. Everything has to be balanced. It's okay to sleep in, but just not too late. It's okay to stay up late, but not too late. Everything has to be balanced, or some of this advice just isn't gonna work. So it's okay to sleep in, okay to take naps. You need about 8 hours of sleep, so how do you go about it? Well, here's a couple of tips I've got. The first one I shared in a short video, and a couple of people said that actually helped. So it made me happy because it knows that it doesn't just work for me, it works for other people too. So the first prerequisite is to find a dark room. This doesn't have to be pitch black dark where you don't have any light whatsoever. I mean, that helps, but the darker the better. Then now that you have a dark room, it's gonna be easier to fall asleep, but what you should do is instead of jumping in bed and trying to go to bed just instantly, closing your eyes and trying to go to bed, you should stare at the ceiling in the dark room for about 10 minutes. This is why it needs to be a dark room, so your eyes kind of adjust to it and just stare at the ceiling and just kind of slowly get sleepy. As you're staring at the ceiling, you'll notice you want to close your eyes, you want to go to sleep, but by forcing your eyes to stay awake and stay open for another 5-10 minutes, once you start feeling that, it makes you sleepier, and it gives you that feeling of when you're sitting listening to a teacher and it just feels so nice to doze off and go to sleep. It replicates that feeling. I'm not sure exactly how this works, but my best guess is that this works because your brain goes so active and so fast and then tries to immediately switch to just doing nothing in sleep. And it's too much of a transition. So this time of staring at the ceiling is that transition period. It's time for your brain to just think about the day and process what's happening and just sit in silence for a little while. And then you realize, oh, I'm sleepy, and then your brain goes to sleep. That's the it in theory. Hopefully it works for you. One thing that will make this tip work better is to not have your phone anywhere near your bed. You've heard this one before and you've probably disregarded it, but just don't have your phone near your bed. It helps so much. I took mine off for this video, but a watch at Walmart that has a good alarm on it is about $8, and it works a long time. You have no excuse not to put your phone somewhere else besides your bed. This one you definitely won't do because you haven't done it already, but I just thought I should throw it in the video because you shouldn't have your phone beside your bed, and it'll help you a lot with sleeping. The next things are all things that you've probably heard before, kind of like not having your phone beside your bed. But once again, all together, these tips will help you get more sleep in college, even if it's not a consistent schedule. They just all together will help or give you a tactic to try at a certain point. The biggest one is coffee. Even if you think coffee doesn't affect you, just don't have coffee or energy drinks or caffeine in general after 2 or 4 o'clock, whatever time you want to set and that works for you. Because even if you can sleep, the quality of your sleep isn't going to be as good, even if it's like a subconscious thing. And some of the mental perks that come from getting sleep, they just aren't going to take effect because there's caffeine in your system, even if you're able to technically sleep. The next one is something else that people don't like to hear, but it's very simply just don't pull all-nighters. It's okay to stay up, kind of late to get some homework done, but by missing out on those 4 to 3 hours of sleep that you would get if you didn't pull an all-nighter, it's just not worth it. The effects it has are not good on your body, and it wrecks your mental capacity for the next 2 weeks. You're dealing with the after effects of an all-nighter. If you don't notice this effect, it's because your brain isn't able to recognize it. It's just like a drunk person who thinks that they're not impaired and they're perfectly fine to drive, but they don't realize how impaired they are. It's a lot like that. If you must pull an all-nighter and you just have the urge and you just want to stay up all night, then just wait till after your classes are over or near the end of the semester, and it's maybe wait till a break or something and then just do it for fun. But still try not to. This next one is once again something that stinks and it's not a lot of fun, but if you eat right and stay healthy and exercise, your sleep will be a lot better. It's just how God designed our bodies. He designed our bodies for work and movement and hard physical labor, And now that we don't have to do that because of our culture, then we don't sleep as well. So sleep happens easily when you've been working out and getting movement, just not so much if you've been sitting all day. So if you really have trouble falling asleep, work on being more active throughout the day, but probably don't try to be active, right before bed when you realize, oh, I haven't been active today, I need to go work out, and then try and immediately go to sleep. That's not gonna work, but you've heard that before, so just reminding you. One thing you're probably thinking at this point is that you can't do most of these things because you have a roommate that keeps you up by playing loud music or letting blue light just pour from their computer screen and light up the entire room when you're trying to keep it dark. And that all keeps you up. Well, I've dealt with some of these things too. And by meaning that I've dealt with them, I mean that I confronted my roommate, very politely, and asked very politely if they would stop doing that. This is an expectation you have to set at the beginning of the year before things get out of hand. I talk about this more in my roommate video that you can check out up there. But if you don't define expectations, if you don't define right and wrong before the year starts, then you can't confront someone because there's no right and wrong defined. Also preface these conversations with how you can improve and how you will be quiet when you get up early, or when you come in super late, you won't turn on the lights. Just, make it a mutually beneficial thing and just define it before the year starts. I get some roommates are just beyond repair, but most roommates can be, reasoned with, even just a little bit, and every little bit counts when it comes to getting more sleep. So that's what I've got. All of these tips together can help you sleep better and get more sleep in college. It's not going to be possible to keep a perfect sleep schedule, but just stick to the mantra of get as much sleep as possible. Maybe that looks like sleeping in. Maybe it looks like taking naps. And maybe it looks like cutting out all-nighters that you pulled 3 to 4 times a semester. I don't know what it'll look like for you, but use some of these tips, and when you're actually trying to fall asleep, make sure your body's in the best state so that it can fall asleep. And that's what these tips help with. They help your body sleep when it comes time, since there's not really a magic trick to make it actually go to sleep. Sleep is hard, and there's definitely some medical problems that you might be having that prevent people from actually sleeping well or physically falling asleep. So, take this all with a grain of salt, take with it what you will, but hopefully they help you in some way. Thanks for watching.